On this episode of Your Big Brothers, Wisdom Wednesday, we have Paul from Apex Mindset coming through to talk about dating, NLP, and much more. Stay tuned, it's about to go down. Yo, you're watching Your Big Brothers, and on this episode, on Wisdom Wednesdays, we got the one and only Paul Benjamin from Apex Mindset. Let's welcome everybody. What's going on, Paul?
What's up, Glenn? What's going on,
How you doing,
guys?
man?
I'm doing great. Doing wonderful. We got snow on the ground here in Michigan, and I'm not even mad about it. It's nice. It's nice.
What's the temp out there?
It's like in 28 degrees right now, something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah, we hit a cold spell early this year. That's okay though.
I'm over here bitching over 57 degree weather right now.
No, it's that same.
Dude, I got like 32. It's like 32 over here in Philly.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Philly? Yeah. We're about 28 up here. Got some snow on the ground. The lake isn't iced over yet, so I'm still jumping in there. Yeah, every morning. That's my part of my morning routine, man. So,
yep.
Get these guys to get a little morning routine, a little structure in your life. It will help you.
Wait, so instead of doing a cold shower, you dive into the lake?
Yeah, jump in the lake. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then don't you have your hot tub outside too?
Yeah, so I have a sauna. Yeah,
Sauna.
so I have a red light sauna with a red infrared sauna and red light panels. So I jump in there, do about 20 minutes in there. So yeah, my normal routine is kind of wake up and grab the dog, do about a 10-minute walk, get my mind straight for the day. Usually I don't wake up before the sun's up. I'm not like super early guy. So as soon as the sun's coming up, there's something that the sunlight does to your eyeballs, and it actually stimulates your cells. Your cells are actually on a clock or a timer. And so when you get natural light into your eyes, it starts that timer so that you sleep really well. You start releasing natural melatonin about 14 to 16 hours later, which gets you ready for sleep. So somebody who had deployment related sleep problems, just simply getting outside and walking for 10 minutes in the morning helped eradicate or alleviate some of those problems. But yeah, I'll do that. And then I'll, the dog I have he's a what's it called? A elk hound, a Norwegian elk hound, which looks kind of like a husky, but he's a lot more chill and trainable. And so
he probably doesn't run away, right?
No.
Huskies run away. They're roamers.
They're roamers.
I had a husky and she took off every single time. Like,
yeah. No, this dude's chill. He hangs out and we jump in the lake together, and I get emerge in the lake. I usually will do a cigar or something. Cigar is not the most healthiest option, I understand. However, there is a benefit of nicotine and dopamine. So they've researched that pretty well. And some of neuroscientists, when they figured that one out, used to chew nicotine gum. So yeah, the problem with nicotine is the delivery. That's bad for you. Like smoking is not good for you. But cigars are one of the least consequential of that.
Well, you don't even inhale them.
You don't inhale them, right?
Yeah, it's the least invasive.
Right. And I don't like smoke like 3 and 4 a day. I'll smoke like.
What's your favorite stick?
Man, my favorite is a company called CLE. I'm going to plug it right now for my buddy, because I know the guy who half owns it. He's a co-owner of it. So CLE is good. Asylum cigars are good. They're all like Dominican, Honduran, all that stuff. They're really good cigars, but they're not. I mean, they're a big company, but they're not like huge like CAO or Padron or any of that. So, so they make really good quality stuff. And I'll smoke like a quarter to a half a stick in the morning. When I do when I jump in the water though, I'll do my breath work in the water. So I do meditative breath work, and then come out, and then I'll chill in the sauna, and I either do more breath work or I just start thinking about my to-do list of what I got for the day. Clear my head.
When you talk about breath work, is that like holding a breath for a certain amount of time and then releasing? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so there's different breath patterns, so some of them, if I'm doing a really intense breath work session, I won't do that in the water because I'm disrupting my CO2 balance in the brain, which releases natural DMT, gives you a kind of a hallucinogenic effect and a high. actually, but it's a good, healthy one. You know, the amount of DMT you're releasing from your natural organs is this much. You know what I mean? It's not like drug level, but what it does is it releases bliss, neurochemicals that stimulate a feeling of bliss and acceptance and gratitude. And so if I'm doing heavy breath work, I'll do that in the sauna, because if I do happen to, which it's never happened to me, but if I do happen to black out or like lose consciousness because of throwing that CO2 balance off, there is some breath holds in that type of breathing that I'm not doing in the water, right? You know?
Yeah.
But
Okay, you're not gonna pass
be
out.
safe about it.
Yeah.
Well, look,
yeah.
look. I want to get this started because I want to keep it tight to the schedule. I don't want to keep it going over.
Right. I thought these would be valuable though for everybody to hear.
Oh no,
actually,
I'm definitely keeping all this. This is all being utilized.
Yeah, because a morning routine is very valuable, like to getting your day started the right way. You know what I'm saying? I think
100% agree.
So this actually, I'm going to use this to like open up to my first question.
Yeah.
So Paul, what is your background? Like, I know your background to an extent, but like not everybody else knows your background. And then like why, like, and how did you incorporate the breathing and stuff? Like, is that from your background? Like the things you learned?
Yeah, some of it. I mean, it's all a big hodgepodge of different types of training and education, and some of it I was self-induced. You know, some of it is university and school. Some of it is military. You know, and making connections with working with on the special operations side of the Department of Defense. And so it started off when I was younger, got a degree and, you know, had psychology background with my degree, and then went into started grad school with psych. And I was in a doctorate, you know, program for psychology at U of D Mercy. And, you know, that was what I was going to do. I was going to be a practicing like therapist or psychologist, or so I thought. And then I was also doing, you know, joined the military, was doing military stuff. I ended up going on deployments, and I never went back to grad school to complete a doctorate. So I'm not a doctorate or doctor or anything like that. That's good though. I didn't actually want to do that. Excuse me, clear my throat there. The reason I didn't want to continue with that track was just because I didn't want to be beholden to the APA or to steer directions into a counseling or social working direction, which now I'm beholden to those organizations. Psychology is really good. Like, for example, for researchers, you know, doing the research, I use all their research. You know, I pull their university studies. I look at the, you know, how effective those studies were performed, and I use that information in my coaching and it, you know, and coming up with different methods for clients. They're really good for therapy, mainly with mental disorders. So what I don't do is treat somebody's mental disorder. I'm not in treatment. All right. That's the differentiating thing between a licensed therapist or counselor and what I do. What I work with is people who are either getting treatment somewhere else for a disorder, or they're already healthy and they're wanting to remove limits to their success or achieve their goals. And then there's also the interpersonal, you know, communication and dynamic aspect of that too, and intersexual dynamic. So getting the girls, maintaining relationships, all that stuff. And that was the thing, like I looked at, that was really what I was interested in mostly, was how men and women, you know, interact with each other in the dating market, in the relationships, in the sexual marketplace. Right. And so that was my biggest interest. And all of the main organizations for becoming a therapist or a counselor, they're very flawed in their approach to solving problems in the sexual marketplace. You know, they're indoctrinated with what I would consider more political beliefs, which happens in academia, but it starts to pollute the research and how they approach things. Like, you can't really get certain true aspects about female nature when it's not comfortable in a political sense to talk about it.
Yeah, when it's not comfortable to really expose it.
No,
you know?
you like lose your career. That's how uncomfortable it is. Like, so feminism, for example, and this is really what it is. It's a feminist ideology versus an economic model. So we look at the sexual marketplace as an economic model, right? Which is, okay, there's different aspects to a person that bring their mate value up, You know, some people are going to be more valuable for short-term mating. Some people are going to be more valuable for long-term mating. And that's a model that we use just to understand how men and women react to each other. And it's a rather non-judgmental model. You know what I mean? And it's not, but the feminist ideology, they see that as a threat because they don't like the idea that someone could have a higher economic value in the sexual marketplace than another person. That a woman at 38, for example, is of lower sexual market value than when she was 22.
Yeah.
For long-term relationship perspective, even if she's as hot and took care of herself, for long-term aspects of a relationship, because in raising a family and those goals and stuff like that. So if somebody's value, is to raise a family, let's say, and she's 38 years old, she's of lower economic value or sexual market value than like a 22-year-old. These are not, it's not to slam on the 38-year-old woman and say she's worthless or anything like that. It's just that her value as a woman is, her reproductive value is lower at that age. It's not zero.
There's a higher risk.
Just biology.
There's a higher risk of her, bringing a baby full to term without complications.
Right.
As you get older.
Yes.
Right. So that's all it is.
And the sciences, like the harder sciences, where you get into evolutionary psychology and some of these things, which is more of a harder science than the soft science of psychology, they recognize these differences, and they're very unpopular for recognizing those things, right? And so you get a lot of this information from that, red pill borrows from, right, or whatever. A lot of that stuff is drawn from evolutionary psychology, but I'm not interested, as fun as research sounds, I'm not as interested in being a researcher. So even going back to school for evolutionary psych doesn't particularly interest me, because evolutionary psychologists aren't treating people, they're doing research.
When you say that, let me interject for 1 second. Like when you mentioned that, so then how did you end up in this more red pill space?
Yeah,
because if you're saying that, like, everything with evolutionary psychology, how'd you end up here?
Yeah, so I studied it. I was studying evolutionary psych just on my own, and I just found it very interesting. And I was also studying mindset stuff as well. And it started with things like, I was interested in how we operate on a neurological level, and how we operate just, on a motivational level. So my interests were sexual dynamics as well as motivational psychology, like what motivates a person to do a certain set of actions versus another. Why is one person motivated, let's say, for addiction versus motivated for making $1 million this year? Like how can we steer our behavior? So behavioral psychology and something that's more or less termed neural behavioral conditioning, like how can we change our behaviors based on the neuroplasticity of our brain and stimulating through our thoughts, and through our mental models and our approaches to things. Like how can we change our behaviors to do something different? And I got exposed to this really on the military side of it informally. So we had, psychologists that would work with special forces group and guys in courses and training, to be the special forces operators and all that. And they were assessing us, we were assessing like our strengths and weaknesses and all different kinds of stuff. And then also learning things like breath work, but breath work more like to bring my heart rate down. You know what I mean? So like I could do like a double inhale, exhale right before.
Just to kind of control you, to get you level headed.
Yeah. Like, so before doing like actions on, you know what I mean? Some leveling breath to bring down that adrenaline a bit so I can use my cognitive functions, right? So I don't fall right into my fight or flight areas of my brain. I can maintain my sympathetic nervous system awareness and stuff like that. And so like learning that stuff was super interesting to me. It got me into like email conversations. I have to look the guy up because I don't remember his name, but he was the head of neurology over at Harvard back in like 2011, 2012. Again, all informal. We're just having conversations on how to introduce mindfulness and meditation for soldiers. Now, at the time, a lot of it was to be a better operator, basically be a better soldier, be a better, killer, if you want to say it that way. But then I also had a vested interest in, okay, well, how do we also then, handle our our mindsets at home when we're not in that environment. Like, how do we, what makes a person more prone to having PTSD effects than another? Stuff like that. Like all these just things I was interested in. And in the process of doing that, I'd be in training environments or deployments, and I would just take courses and do on-site courses for different things. I'm, a master hypnotherapist. I'm a master NLP practitioner. These are things I could do outside of, do you know what I mean? Like university structure, because in the nature of what I was doing in the military, I couldn't just it was harder, to be like in a program like that. You almost have to retire from soldiering to do that than the way I was doing it, anything past undergrad. And so I was just doing that. And then EMDR certification out of Europe, because, I don't have to be a licensed practicing therapist to be a EMDR certified practitioner necessarily. Right.
Now, see,
yeah.
For those that don't know what EMDR is, okay, so full disclosure, you guys, like when I was going through my divorce and I was going through the thick of it, I reached out to Paul. I hit him up on I think it was a Facebook or something, and then I was like, dude, I need help. And he took the time, met up with me on I think it was a Zoom, and like he worked with me and he applied EMDR to work through the
So what is that though? Define EMDR.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Paul.
Oh, eye movement reprocessing and desensitization is the what it stands for. But basically, what the best explanation for it, so if we want to link it to some evolutionary stuff, is that we were nomadic as a species, and we learned how to process our anxiety through forward movement or forward ambulation. So we were either hunter-gatherers walking towards new resources, or walking or even sprinting or jogging to danger to get into a battle, or to do a hunt, or to do something stressful. And so there's a lot of stress and survival threats, obviously, back in those times without penicillin versus now. And there's a lot of trauma that could happen immediately. And then your survival depended on sticking with the tribe and maybe driving forward. You didn't have, you couldn't just sit there and grieve and have depression and lock yourself in your comfortable bed for 2 months. Right. And so we learned how to process and get to an acceptance point of traumatic events through this, forward ambulation, which caused our eyes to move back and forth. Because if you notice yourself walking and you're not buried in your phone, which, by the way, this is why I walk in the mornings too, is that your eyes are up and you're scanning the horizon. It's just natural. And we did it to scan for predators or just scan for danger. And that allowed our minds on a neurological level to process things that we perceived as stressors. And that processing thing starts during the activity, and it continues actually throughout the day, and then while you sleep even more so. So you understand how, how our associations to, stimulus, it greatly affects how we respond on an emotional and mental level to things. And so when your brain sees, okay, let's say there's a death in a family and you're upset about it, of course, right? You have this sense of loss and there's tears and bad feelings. When your brain senses that, okay, those bad feelings are no longer productive and there's no longer like a sense of danger for you to continue holding on to those, then your brain will start to work to process through those feelings and do something with them so you can be more productive. And getting to an acceptance point and a point of gratitude for where you're at and for what happened, and being able to have radical acceptance for what you experienced, or for the death or the loss or whatever, the breakup, right? That's the best place to be. But lack of coping mechanisms, people will do other things like distraction mechanisms. So if the pain's still there and they just distract, right? And then if some similar stimulus happens, it stimulates that pain all over again, because it's the body trying to keep them out of danger or problems, right? If compartmentalizing, but in a bad way, not allowing yourself to process is another way, not recognizing the emotion, burying that stuff, not allowing yourself to cry over the chick that screwed you over, right? For example, I mean, it's not a weak thing to do it.
Not gonna lie. I
Yeah,
cried. No problem saying that.
you
It
know,
was
but
rough.
you're not crying and emoting on TikTok. You're going for a walk like a man and you're handling your shit. And then you come back and you're like, all right. And then you feel a little bit better because you've processed those emotions. Well, that eye movement, there's something to that that allows for that on a neurological level, that processing. They think it might be linked to your REM sleep, you know, because our eyes move in a similar fashion when we're in REM sleep. So it seems to be related to how we connect our neurons together on both hemispheres of the brain to store and put value on our memories and thoughts and experiences. And so it just allows you to be more mentally balanced and more self-aware. And it's just a good overall activity.
No,
You know,
seriously,
it's
and guys,
interesting. I just
hold
want
on,
to say,
hold on real quick, cuz. And for the guys, it may sound like he just said a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo, sciencey, like
I
woo woo magic stuff.
It's all bullshit.
Like it, I kid you not. When he first told me about this, I was like, sure, why not? You know,
Me
but
too.
you have to go into it like willingly to give it a full shot effort. And like I kid you not, I think we did just like a handful of sessions, like 2 or 3 sessions, and I was
Yep.
like really making great progress through that. I was like, it really helped relieve a lot of the struggle that I was dealing with. And what you do is like you help them reframe the memory with the value, right?
Yes.
You know, you help them reframe that memory and place that you. It's like they almost like you show them it a different way,
Yeah.
right? Like you just it's
you see
revision.
it from a different perspective, you know, because
That's right,
you're not
exactly.
weighed down by that emotional weight. See, we have protective ways of putting values on things, you know, like, you know, for example, let's say you go through a terrible breakup. Since we talk about sexual dynamics here in this channel, let's talk about it. Guys have gone through the breakup, right? And let's say you know, there's a lot, she did a lot of terrible things at the end, which is really common. You know, once a woman no longer has that emotional draw, she'll see that guy actually as a threat to her success and her mating success. And a less self-aware woman of those things will do fairly mean and cruel things to a partner when they're breaking up. You know, mate switching and making sure he knows about it, you know, toxic texts, toxic arguments, belittling. Like there's a lot of things that they'll do. And this person who, you know, in your head is not a bad person inherently, all of a sudden is a bad person to you. And this will throw people off and they'll get them caught up in like a loop where they can't move on. And it's really interesting. People who are caught in abusive relationships, this will happen too, because it's like, here's this person where I see all of their mate value and all of the things that they have to offer that are good. And yet they're treating me so badly and they're treating me in a way that's unfair. And I made mistakes too, but the way I'm being treated is unfair. And if, and there should be,
that's what I was going to say.
Mhm.
Like, I know that with like, when you deal with somebody, like let's say that they have like borderline and you're in one of those abusive, toxic relationships.
Oh yeah.
Whatever it is
Right.
it EMDR?
EMDR, yeah. It's just one
EMDR.
technique, but yeah.
That is great for reprogramming things.
Oh yeah, sure. Because what happens is it throws off your, what I call a safe world theory, which is, okay, you have a series of beliefs that allows you to operate in the world safely, emotionally and physically, you know, and mentally safely. And you looked at this person as a partner that you trusted, and you had a belief about this person because of your neurochemical bond to them. And that person shatters those beliefs in, let's say, a toxic breakup. And now you no longer have the neurochemical bond, and they're no longer associated as that person who you can safely have these emotions for, right? And you can safely open up to, you can safely allow her to have access to parts of your resources or parts of you that, you know, you wouldn't just give out to anybody else. And that calls to question now your entire judgment of who you would allow to have these parts of you in the future, right? And so your brain becomes really confused and trying to understand, but having a lot of resistance, right, to moving on from this, because it's more critical. Like, it's better for your survival if you have a bunch of bad feelings that prevents you from putting yourself in danger again. But it's not better for your success and happiness, you know what I mean, to hold on to these things and to be caught in this loop. And what it is, it's a loop of resentment. People will be like, this person becomes the point of origin to why you can't do well with girls in the future, why you feel girls are a certain way, why you feel your mate's success is not going to be good. You know, it's because, well, she did this, she was such a bad person. And then you'll have people talk about, like, they know she's bad and that she created this trauma and all this stuff. She becomes a villain that you have to try to defeat in some way in order
you have to
on.
overcome her. You have to like show, it's like almost like you never get to live in your frame because you're in her frame. As long as you're trying to live and prove to her that you are not what she says you are, or that you are not worthless like she says you are.
Exactly.
Or in my case, you are not unlovable. You are unlovable, you know, like she says you are. Like you're that, as long as you're trying to prove that or disprove that, you are living
stuck
in their frame.
You're stuck. You can't get out of it. And your emotions are designed to keep you there because that keeps you out of what? The danger of doing that again, right? And having your mating success threatened. Again, it's just the way the brain is designed. Now, you know, we have to think and strategize the way that our brain is designed and use some of these tools so we can use them to our advantage rather than our disadvantage. And that the best way to do that in just a practical sense for the guys that are listening and maybe struggling with that is to start to have a lot of gratitude and love for that other person and radical acceptance for who they are.
That's
and radical, and radical acceptance for the death of that relationship. So if I had a friend of mine that, which I have had friends of mine, right? I've, who've done things to themselves that make them no longer living with us. Let's say could be drug overdose, could be self-selection. Okay. Something like that. Here's a person who I cared about and who had a lot of great qualities, but who yet did something maybe very selfish and bad to themselves. And it can lead to a lot of resentment and confusion. Right. But since it's not a romantic relationship, it's easier to not get stuck in that loop. So most guys who can identify with this will understand, well, what did you do, right, to get through that? Well, you focused on the good qualities of that person, right? You focused on the gratitude for the time you had with them and how good they were and appreciated who they were. You got rid of that hate for that person for what they did to themselves. And by getting rid of that hate and appreciating them who they are, but also accepting that this is no longer exists anymore. This person's not here anymore. That's over with. What that does is it allows you to forgive them for the things that they did. And forgiveness is
forgiveness.
Right. And forgiveness is for you. It's not for them. And so now apply that to the breakup. You appreciate and have gratitude for who she is. You have a love for her, for who she was and who she was to you. And you have an appreciation and gratitude for the experiences of the relationship that were good. The ones that weren't good, you have radical acceptance for it. In other words, they're bad. The bad things that happened, I don't want to repeat those, but what can I learn from those things? What can I get out of that? Right. And that's what accepting and having that radical acceptance does. And it gets you out of this loop. And your emotions are trying to hold you back from doing this activity I just verbalized. And things, EMDR, walking, journal and processing, and breath work are 4 activities that allow you to rapidly remove that negative emotional connotation, have a positive connotation for the person and for the relationship as it was, with an acceptance and an objective point of view of never wanting that person back like that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like you can't be like, I love, because guys are afraid to have the acceptance and love for them because then they're going to want to be back with them, because it's this attachment.
It's like, so you have to like, you have to remember the love of who they were when it was good, but acknowledge that part is dead.
Yes. Well,
that part is dead. So you're mourning.
Yes.
You will never get that part again.
that part
So
of them.
you have to live with it,
but it existed.
You have to accept the
existed,
reality
no
of
more.
what is now here.
And that is part of them too. Like everybody has parts of them, you know, that is a reality in one time or another. I've been the villain in someone's story, and I've been the hero in someone's story. You know what I mean? And it's a point of arrogance, in that people have this arrogance to keep themselves safe when they want to compartmentalize people into bad and good people. Now, certainly, it's more of a scale. Now, certainly there are people out there that are villainous, right? They're definitely more bad and more of a danger than good. I can still radically accept those people. However, that doesn't mean I'm, you know, not setting boundaries with them. That doesn't mean I'm hanging out with them. I'm not letting them babysit my kid.
It's also like you have to ask the question, like, the question is, are they bad from your worldview?
Yes.
Because in their worldview, they could be good.
Right.
You know, like they could be working towards their goal or their purpose, and you could be the obstacle. It's like, it's all about perception, like how you view it as well, right?
Sure. And yes, but there's clearly bad and good. There's clearly good and evil, you know, in a sense. Like, so I don't want to like make people think I'm like a moral relativist, because I'm not. I mean, if somebody's like, you know, predating on children, like, there's nothing good about that. There's no perspective that's going to make that different. But like, that child predator might have, I know this is like a weird, it's going to feel bad even me saying it, but they may have qualities to them that aren't all bad, right? There probably is. And see, this is scary to people, because when you start to get into this, you realize like that serial killer is only like 2 stones throws away from being normal. Like, it's not like that person is like an alien and then everybody else is good. That's the safe world theory. That's the story people tell themselves to be safe. When you understand human dynamics, you realize it's a scale, and that this person, you know, has these mental problems that causes them to be a serial killer, but there's a lot of more normal about that person than what's not normal. It's those couple things that make them relatively more or less evil, you know. And people who interview these guys or work with them in jail and prisons and stuff and write stories, it's like they develop like a weird, they're like, it's like, I like talking to this person. He's not, you know, like this person almost could be my friend, but they're like this though. They have this evil
like they realize because we kind of and we don't make them human when we talk about these people. Like, we make them like non-human. We make them just monsters, or make them just complete, you know, we dehumanize them
to do that. Yeah, because you dehumanize people who are dangerous to you. And this is, by the way, why women are so ruthless in breakups, because when they see you as a danger to their reproductive success, they have to demonize you. You know, so their drive is to be because their success is predicated on them being what I call the good chimpanzee, meaning everyone sees them as a good, worthwhile human being, an attractive human being, a good person, a good mate, a good partner. And so if they were participating in the demise of that relationship, just like maybe it's, let's say it's equal, you know, mistakes on both sides. And she participated in the demise just as much as the dude. She never wants to tell that story because it makes her the bad chimp. And so she always has to be victimized by the villain, which is the
way that she tells the narrative is, you know, he's the monster. He pushed me to do this. I had no choice. I needed to escape, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And this is the story. This is their safe world. They have to tell this story because they have to be able to have the confidence to navigate the marketplace, to do what's instinctually natural for them, which is to find a new mate and to find social status. Because, you know, women survived in the tribes, let's say, through social maneuvering, social state. They got their needs taken care of by the tribe that brought the resource in. And their value was keeping social connections together, which is very valuable, and keeping, you know, some, you know, we'll say happiness and getting along and stuff amongst members of the tribe, and also utilizing those resources really efficiently, which is why we think classically of cooking being like, oh, you know, not that I cook all the time, right? But I mean, it's a, you know, woman being in the kitchen, like that whole image. Well, yeah, that's utilization of resources, right? So there's it's a classic model of dude bringing in resources, and she knows how to utilize those resources in the most efficient and effective way in the kitchen. So that's where that model comes from. It's all instincts. And so, yeah, so she's instinctually driven to be the good chimp, whereas you're the useful chimp, you know? And so when people make you feel useless as a man, that's what really attacks your self-esteem, as being useless, not having solutions to problems, not being capable. You know what I mean? A guy can be the a-hole, but be the capable a-hole and be just fine with that. And people will get along with them.
How do you,
him,
that's absolutely fantastic. I love how we're like diving deep into this.
Yeah.
What is like, how do you teach guys this? Like, what do you offer guys to get them to that point?
Yeah. Well, so I do a lot of free stuff on YouTube, of course, I mean, and guys are willing to sit through longer form talks, because human dynamics are not that simplistic. I mean, there's certainly value of having simple information in like a short 2 or 3 minute video. But the reality is, the way that you operate and the way you're designed as a social animal is quite complex. And it does you good to put a little bit of work into that. Because if you don't put work into it, you're going to put 3 to 5 times more work into correcting your mistakes and your failures. So a lot of people are like, the mantra, work on yourself and chase excellence and don't worry about, let's say, women, and don't worry about things like communication skills and whatever. Wrong. Part of working on yourself is to hone these skills too. Because if you don't, you're still going to mate, you're still going to date, but you're going to waste 3, 4, 5 times more effort, resources, and energy from your screw ups when you could have learned something good in the first place. So generally speaking, I have the free stuff on YouTube, but then I have like my mastermind program, which is a year-long program where guys, do Zoom calls and they have course material and they work through their things they want to work on, and there's a ton of course material. And then I have my mindset course. And so I have courses where guys can gather this information and work through it. And then I have, one-on-one coaching more or less through group coaching. And then in my group, they can access me for one-on-one sessions at a lot cheaper rate than I offer the public. And that I don't mind doing stuff for the public, but it's an issue of time, and my time ends up being in high demand. So it ends up being expensive to talk to me outside of a group. Whereas
trust me, I can barely get him to answer a text message these days, you guys. Like, he is so busy.
I know, we're like friends. Yeah, I know, and so it's like, yeah, so it's about, compartmentalizing my time too. So I'm most effective for each person, like I don't want to show up to help somebody solve their problem and be less effective because I'm tired or, I've got too much, other stuff I have going on or thinking about. So I have to compartmentalize my time really well. And I do that through those groups, so like we have the master, not to like plug, but we're going to plug it.
No, we're going to plug anyway.
Plug away. Yeah. I got the Alpha Mindset Summit I'm going to do in December. So if guys are over at Apex Mindset on YouTube, you get the announcement on the email list and stuff when that's happening, when I'm going to open that for enrollment. And it'll be the mindset course. Plus we're going to do some Zoom calls, and each one will have a topic and then a Q&A, help guys get their inner game together for the 2023 goals, because, this time of year is tough for a lot of people, you know what I mean? Who are struggling or not doing well. So I think that's good.
And you also got the seductive course. Hold on, let's not forget that one, because that was the one that you threw at me. That's the group that I'm in.
Yeah. That's the email. Yeah, you're on the Facebook group for it. But yeah, we do Zoom calls and they have course material for it too. And so I have, not including Zoom calls, I got like 60 hours of course material already for that. And that's all about frame and seduction and basically start to finish, meeting the girl and being attractive, not being unattractive, moving that along into a romantic relationship, sleeping with each other, all that good stuff. And then if it makes it past that point, right, long-term relationship stuff and handling and planning for long-term relationships and keeping, that attraction going and minimizing problems and conflicts as things go along, right? And so, and there's everything from mate selection, everything else. So, and it's all about frame and how to utilize frame. And if you go to any of my YouTube videos right now, like that I've posted recently, there's a free webinar on frame. That's kind of the intro to, you want to join this group, watch this free webinar. It's not just an advertising piece though. Like it's about 45, 50-minute long webinar on frame, and it explains frame really well. Like I recommend anybody just do it, even if you don't join the group or anything, because it's solid stuff.
I've watched it. Like I've watched it. I watched it, I think, twice so far now.
Yeah,
it's good, because man. Frame is literally the most, in my opinion, one of the most important things to have. You can't do anything without establishing frame first and understanding what frame is and how to run with frame. But Paul, like in this space, like, okay, so we got a lot of this space, the red pill space or the manosphere space. Sure. It gets a lot of flack, and I would say sometimes maybe rightly so by certain, vocalized, content creators or people. Like how do you navigate like the negative from the positive, like, and being associated with, like, because they just associate everybody in this space with that one person that is being negative. Like,
yep.
Do you have any problems with that when just coming to like, creating content and like working with clients?
Yeah. I have. So the biggest challenge I have really is more or less actually getting my message and what the things I work on guys with more public. And that's the reason why. That's a couple reasons for that. One is because, so this is what the information I teach and help guys with, and help some women with who've come to me. It will help you be successful, but the consumer marketplace actually doesn't really promote that success. Just think about it. We used to be, a labor-based economy where the nuclear family kept at least usually the guy working, into old age, right? And then hopefully retiring to take care of his family and extended family. And they had a bunch of kids who were a bunch of little workers to go out and, be more labor force, right? That was what our economy was based off of. We shifted with technology into more of a technological and consumer-based economy. So now it's not so much labor. I mean, look at the COVID stuff, right? And labor is not happening, and yet people are still figuring it out. And we're making money more through technology, and technology-based things are taking over. And now what's driving economy is consumerism. So like more so. So how many more things are you buying on Amazon if you've been divorced 3 times? Probably a lot of things, right? If you got kids from a couple different wives and you're going through that system, you're spending a lot more money into that marketplace than you were in, back with one marriage that actually worked out or whatever, right? And so there's a lot of you got to follow the money. A lot of the ideologies that are promoted are going to set people up for short-term mating, not long-term success. The feminist ideology, which, start off with first wave, had some valid reasons, in my opinion.
Yeah, they had some legitimate gripes. There was mistreatments and abuse going on there. They had legitimate gripes.
Yep. But now the image of what makes a woman valuable from westernized feminist ideals is not what sets them up for long-term relationship success. It just doesn't. It sets them up for short-term mating, maybe, or no mating at all if they're not physically attractive. But it's not setting them up for that long-term happiness, which ultimately we do want after a point to have a secure partner for the long haul. That seems to be the drive for most people on a statistical level. So guys who think it's not just programming or social conditioning to want that, everyone seems to want that. Even guys who come to like the PUA or red pill space who go, oh yeah, like I don't need the blue pill fantasy. I'm going to spin plates, date a bunch of girls. What ends up happening? They always end up in an LTR. And I end up getting their call a year later. And they're like, my LTR is dumping me because she found out I had plates in the beginning of the relationship. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about this now. Right. And so ultimately, you know, with women particularly who drive the marketplace, because they're generally the selectors, if you look at Berfalt's law, when they're younger, mate switching is more economical for their reproductive success because they're at the highest value in terms of the way they look. So let's say they go with this guy and then they mate switch him because it gets dull and she doesn't like the way he handles an argument or something or whatever. Well, the next guy might be higher value too, right? But if the next guy's lower value, it's like, oh, well, I'll switch again. Oh, well, you know what I mean? So from that side of it, well, we're not designed to live past like 30 or so. You know, we stepped on a spike somewhere on a hike and then got, you know, gangrene and died from it like back in the day, right? People didn't.
Good point.
They had the capability of living as old, but you know, something usually killed them off earlier.
Like the medium age was around like what, 40 or 55 or something like that was considered like
100 years ago was 55.
Yeah.
And like prior to that, it was in the 40s. And then prior to that, it was like in the 30s. Right. Mm-hmm. And so think about like the average chick strategy. If she was mate switching a lot, she had a lot of reproductive opportunity to have different babies with different guys of high value, maybe. And then those babies survived. Right. So from a reproductive sense, she could be more successful mate switching. But she's going to be drastically unsuccessful if she lives to be 70, 80 years old, because her value and ability to mate switch now successfully goes down tremendously. After 25, it goes down a big chunk. And then after 30, it's an even bigger chunk. And then after that, we call it the wall, right? And so it's not that they don't have a woman watching this who's 40 years old. Don't freak out. You have the opportunity for mating success, but you don't have the same opportunity you did when you're 20. It's just the reality of it, you know? And so them being the selectors, they're focused on short-term mating, better for the economy, feels better, I'm sure at the time, because it's hard work to say, I screwed this up and this guy's mad at me. I need to change what I'm doing here because I'm violating boundaries or I'm doing some things that aren't good. That doesn't feel as good short-term. But where it feels even worse is when they're 38 years old and they can't find a good man. You know what I mean? And so that's what we're dealing with right now is people are not stimulating long-term relationship skills, which are, you know, it's difficult. If it wasn't difficult, then more people would be happy in them.
That's a huge thing that I do. I mean, I do dating coaching and I work with people and try and help them like, yeah, it's easy to get laid, but it's more difficult to have a long-term successal relationship.
Yep. 100%. And now, if you've been,
I have a quick question. Here's a quick question. Like when you think about like the space, right? When a lot of the content that's being created, you know, it's promoting, you know, not relationships, but spinning a lot of plates. You know, like you got some creators saying like, you know, oh, if she does this, she's for the streets, get rid of her. You know, like it seems like the value in, you know, relationships it's almost like we're in a Tinder. We're like the feminists. It's like we're in Tinder. Literally, we're in Tinder. The way everybody treats each other is like Tinder.
Yes.
Nothing is committed. Nothing is like deep. Everything is very surfacey and like
shallow.
Very shallow. And so it's like, in a way, do you think like, you know, some of the I call them like the fringe element of this space, because I don't think the core of this space that's what it's for. I think
some of the fringe element though is pretty mainstream and gets a lot of attention.
Yes, yeah, they are.
Right?
Like, do you find like the fringe element like really causing more problems for like the guys they're trying to help than they are doing good?
Yeah, they are. And I don't know if I think that's just a whole nother, that's more or less audience driven, right? Because people are not as committed to changing their situation for the better. And we're talking the general public. I hope the individual listening, you're going to be different than this, but the general public is not interested in changing their situation for the better as much as they are interested in feeling better about their situation. And that can be through entertainment. That can be through feeling justified. Back to that loop, right? That girl who hurt that guy, and then he hears all these women are 304s. It's just your turn. All this crap. He gets to stimulate that loop of that he's caught up in, You know what I mean? Where he's been
That's what traps
victimized.
people in black pill. That's what traps people
Yes.
in black pill. Yeah.
In extreme. Glenn's muted there. Sorry, Glenn.
That's what feels like what Kevin Samuels was doing with the women, you know, like calling them out. But I mean, I didn't never thought what he did was wrong. I thought he was being authentic and true to them. But it's like the only reason why he was so successful is because all those guys that were burnt and were stuck in that loop, right?
They like
are
watching
just
it, and
feeling
all
this
the women
victory,
too.
like, yeah, they got her finally.
Well, anything that creates a opposing view conversation is what's entertaining, because people don't like to think 5 steps into something. They like to think about 2 things that are opposing each other and then get on that and jump on that. That's more entertaining. This is why politics are generally 2 parties fighting against each other. Would it be more efficient and better to have 5 parties with different views? Sure. Nobody wants to think that far. And that's the problem.
It's too much work, Paul.
Right.
It's too much work.
Yes, and that's it. And they don't want to do that work. And that's the struggle. But the struggle of it is that because what I'm doing, which is not misogynist, okay? It's not anti-women, it's not anti-men, of course. It's not even anti-feminism, really. It's just that I have criticisms about the feminist worldview for the success of relationships, but not anti-feminist either. All right. And not anti-anything. Okay. But it is directly at ends or odds, though, for this other thing that's making money, this binary thinking, mate switching, and a lot of those things. And so algorithms won't necessarily push me forward. And actually, like a guy like me, I'll be seen as a threat. The reason why is because people don't want to look at what I'm talking about, which is alternative than your average, not to like crap on the guy or anything, but like a Dr. Phil or Oprah, you know, solution, or Steve Harvey, you know, solution to relationships, which is very neutral. There may be some things in there that are good. I'm not crapping on them, but it doesn't challenge the worldview of how things are being done. I have a point of view that challenges that worldview a bit. And what happens with that is I get lumped into by extremist types that run your algorithms, censorship and everything. I get lumped into the same crowd as dirty PUAs trying to just bang girls and, you know, get STDs, as, you know, incels. For some reason, even though I'm helping guys do better with women,
Wait, Paul,
I get lumped into the
you're telling
incel.
me you're not an incel?
Believe it or not, you know? And so, yeah.
You should definitely know that Paul's not an incel. Okay.
He's going to my Instagram and figure that one out.
Yeah, you'll figure it out real quick.
but yeah, it's like, yeah. So it's people who, and then people who want to throw the words like misogyny around really quickly. And my challenge too is, if is everything fits sort of a role or a demographic. You look at me, I'm a white male with muscles and tattoos, and you're
white privileged, okay?
And I'm
good looking. You're buff. You're a Chad. Yep. So
I must be just, you know, a total misogynist.
Oh yeah.
And so if I say something unfavorable to, let's say, long-term mating success, but that is a part of female nature, not because I'm slamming on women, but because it's factual, that immediately lumps me in. So like my channel, for example, is shadow banned. I've watched videos that I've had, like I put out a video and I've had a couple go viral for seconds, like for an hour, I hit 20,000 on one of them, and then boom, done. Yeah, they just literally cut it off. And so to combat that, I'm trying to come up. Now, part of this too is like when I started talking on YouTube, I'm in Afghanistan and I didn't care to censor myself, even though it wasn't negative like on anybody, but it was like just speaking about this frankly can throw somebody off rhetoric wise, you know, who I've had women who are mainstream go, that sounds really misogynist, but then they'll listen longer, like, okay, he's not, right? But like they have to take 2 steps further to realize that on the surface, it doesn't fit mainstream narratives. So now my challenge now, and what I'm going to try to do now, is open up a new channel, have some higher production value stuff, and work on at least other channels. Like I'll sell my main channel where I just tell it like it is, right? But I'll work on other platforms where I deliver the message in a way that is a bit more comfortable for somebody who's not been exposed to this stuff to hear. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to placate to people who would be offended, but I feel like I can have this conversation, especially now, in a way that it will get the message, the useful messages out, and communicate those things without alienating people. I won't get
I think
past.
that's huge, and I just want to hop in there for a second
Yeah.
because that really, really resonated with me.
Mm.
Essentially, when we talk about Wisdom Wednesdays, most people see 2 feet in front of them.
Yep, that's it.
And you need to speak in a way that they can see further. And you can't expect them to see further because most of the time they're only looking 2 feet in front of them.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. Yep. And so, and communication is, you know, a two-way street, and we forget that. You know, and I used to approach this the wrong way too, probably years ago, where just not realizing it's like screw it, you know, I'm gonna say what I want and screw it. I don't care what anyone thinks. Yeah, that sounds really alpha and cool. But the problem is it's not really communication, you know, because the reality is there's communicating what I'm trying to communicate, my message, my values, and my and getting. But there's the other aspect of it is I need to do it in a way that the other person can understand and accept what I'm saying. And their bubble is here, my bubble is here. It's my job as a communicator who's an effective communicator to cross into their bubble and have communication in a way that will resonate with them so that they can understand a message without their preconceived notions stepping in and their prejudices and that are normal that everybody
and without
has.
feeling threatened. You
Sorry.
know, a lot of people feel threatened if you say something in that like, oh, tough alpha guy way.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
But a lot of it's just wording, you know, so and so that's where, you know, and there's some people who do this pretty effectively in different things, you know, where I'm going to strive to do that better. You know what I mean? And that's where it's at. And that's where the red pill and manosphere space is failing is that they don't have that language. If in fact, you'll get blamed for being a purple pill, or you'll get blamed for being if you have language.
If you try to articulate it in a way, if you try to articulate your delivery in a way that it's accepted by both parties, by all involved, like all that could digest it and accept it, you're considered either placating to them or you're purple pilled or you're a pussy, you know, we just recently did a video about the church and merit, or the men in church, why men are not in church. And we presented it in the way that like we brought video evidence, you know, like testimonials of guys confirming why they're no longer there, you know, and what has transpired. So like when we presented the whole presentation, because we were very careful, like, look, there's going to be a whole lot of people that are believers in church are going to be really upset with us if we don't deliver this correctly, because they're going to think that we're attacking the church. We're not attacking the church. You know, we're attacking what's going on now. We're pointing out what's wrong with it. And it's not the religion, but in the actual structure of it.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, you have to have the know-withal to know that how you approach and how you deliver what you're saying could either fall on deaf ears and be rejected, or actually be received and actually improve and help.
Yep. And so it's funny, Glenn, as you're talented with this, being a person who's in Hollywood, right? Because part of acting is sending a message and emotions and things that resonate, you know, that other people can resonate with those things and have empathy with those things. When I come across as something as a salty NCO former grunt, or still kind of a grunt, and it's like some guys there's going to be a portion of guys who want to be like the alpha guys, that they're going to idealize that. But then there's going to be a whole subset of a bunch of other people who are just going to be threatened by it, you know, and they're not going to have empathy for what I'm in understanding of my perspective and why I'm saying what I might be saying. And so it's like, and that's a real talent to be able to do that. And that was a mistake of mine when I first came out is I didn't care about it because I'm just this guy, like in a teaching or instructional format, and even in a coaching format, it's like, F you, bro, you got to do this and quit being of this. And you got to do that, bro. Like, hey, this is what it is. And I'm compassionate, but I cut right to it. And I don't bullshit around. But when I game though, and when I'm talking to a woman that is somebody that I'm dealing with, that I'm with, let's say sexual partner or long-term relationship, do I say, hey, grab your shit, we gotta F and go, and you're too,
You
know what?
finesse it.
Yeah, no, right? Because that's
You
not
have
good
to
game.
finesse it.
Okay. Now, I mean, there's sometimes when I'm assertive at the right times and authoritative, she won't always like that. Sometimes she really likes it, if you know what I'm saying, but it depends on the context. But, I have to calibrate my message and how I talk to her in a way that she receives the message well. And in sales, I was a sales trainer for was another life of mine. Part of it was the NLP stuff, right? So as Berkshire Hathaway, in the real estate arm, I was going to branches and helping people, train people how to sell. And so if I'm trying to get someone to list with me, I want them to see my value as a listing agent, not have to challenge them on whatever stuff they're doing that I don't agree with, or tell them, hey, bro, you're stupid if you go with them. You need to go with me. You know what I mean? I can't be a grunt about it. I need to communicate in a way that they understand my message and that's productive. And we do this with women. That's part of game. Mm-hmm. Why aren't we doing that when we as content creators, when we put a message out and we want it to resonate and I want light bulbs to go on? And some people are really good at this. I won't mention their names because I don't know if they're actually good people or not, but I've caught a few people who have talked about some of these different messages, and they're more like they've been in Hollywood or they've been in media personalities. I'm like, now that I'm looking at how they deliver a message, they're really good at it. And I admire it more than I did before, so that's something I'm personally want to work on for myself.
That's my biggest focus, because like I do dating coaching. I work with guys and I try and help them, and noticing that, if you do the brute force method, it doesn't really work. And I used to start that way. And
it's like you have to know your audience too. Like
exactly.
If you're talking to a specific person that and you could visually see in person, and you can see that they could take that bruteness of a delivery, then you could give it to them. But if you're on the screen, you don't know who's watching you. You really don't know. So it's like you have to tailor your delivery to be firm, but also compassionate. You be like factual, but also hopeful at the same time. You just can't just, this is it. It's one of those things. But so we're about at the hour mark, and I didn't want to keep you any longer. Huz, do you have a question for him? Like one more question, because I'm gonna have a question, then we're gonna wrap it up, and then let him go because it's Saturday and he has his son over there, so I want him to get back to his family. So Huz, you got a question?
So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Like, I really resonate with you. Like this is absolutely fantastic. Awesome. I want to ask you, what was your biggest struggle to get to where you are today?
Oh man, biggest. I had so many of them though.
Hey, you can list off a few. It's fine.
I don't know where to start. I'm a product of a lot of bad decisions too. Really, that's the thing about it. I've made so many mistakes to get to where I'm at, and to conclude a marriage that I probably shouldn't have gone into. Now, I actually get along with my ex-wife really well, so it's not like a detriment to me now. But caused her a lot of pain, caused me a lot of pain in the short term. You know what I mean? And I'm not unsatisfied with the results. I got a great son out of it and a great relationship on a platonic level as a co-parent with her. But that's one thing that really will put a stop to a lot of things, like for me. And, I think maybe challenges, some of the biggest challenges would have been changing my mindset of how I looked at work and how I looked at financial success too, because I'd always been somebody who was like a laborer, you know what I mean? Like it just worked. I was a worker guy. And my concept of working and making money and being successful was like the whole Gary V sort of mind, grinding it out and embracing the suck kind of stuff. Cause we did that in the military and that resonated with me when I had a lot of, troubled things about my childhood that, sucked. And so like this idea and being able to do that, I always thought that's just how you're going to be successful. And I realized that you can only get so far with that. And that was the thing. The idea of doing something that you're really passionate about, that you can get lost in, and that's intrinsically rewarding. And then that also compounds a lot of, monetary success for you, which allows you then to do even more and at a greater scale of the thing that you're passionate about. That's the real success that you can get to. And I'm on that road now. And I think that was probably the hardest thing to convert over, was that whole idea, like that it can be a reality. And it's weird to think about, like back when I was in Afghanistan and I could only take 2 or 3 clients at a time, and I would charge them money for it, and felt weird. And like, I'd get on YouTube and I had nobody watching me. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, and I was just intrinsically rewarded by helping people and doing it. So I just did it, even though it took me that a year before I started seeing any success from it. And then of course, once I got, back from Afghanistan, I started, taking that leap of, all right, I'm not going to just start working real estate and I'm going to go all in and do this and start taking clients and start scaling stuff. And I'm not this entrepreneur guy or whatever, right? Like I am now, I guess, but I mean, and I had the real estate background, but it's like, it's funny. I built a real estate team and was successful, but I never saw myself as that dude. You know what I mean? I just didn't is this thing going to work? And yet it's been working. It's been working really well. And I have my biggest challenge right now, like I said, is my exposure. I am put in that category, just like you guys too, I'm sure will be, in a category of, people that need to be banned, by corporate censorship, all of the social media platforms, we need to be banned because we're harmful somehow. And our messages are misogynist or harmful, and we're not, but there's people that get lumped into all of it, and we are just in that category. And it's the challenge now. My biggest challenge is going to be to separate myself from people in the space that are in that category of negative misogynist bullcrap and sensationalism and all that stuff, and to be seen as somebody who really has an inclusive message that's going to help out everybody, And I think that's probably my biggest challenge now. But man, there's been so many of them. It's hard to say, but they're all good.
I'll say this, like if there's anything that we could do to help you, we're definitely going to be plugging you. I mean,
I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
I still watch and I listen to all your videos. I try to get on your live streams every once in a while when I can. But it's
fun to have you on too. Yeah, well, that's the thing. We'll just keep, and vice versa, man. We just support each other to do well. That's the best thing you can do is, I just support, people who I think are trying to do the right thing, and then I just keep doing the right thing myself, and people who see it will support me, and eventually it'll get there. You know what I mean?
That's what we're all here for, right? We're all here to help men.
Yep.
So I don't understand what the negative message is all about, because we're just here to help. That's what it's all about.
The fact that you said to help men is already going to resonate badly with people, and that's the crazy part about it, right?
Well, yeah.
You see what I mean?
You have to be willing to
change
help
our rhetoric
parties.
in a way. Like I have to say, because the reality is, though, you're here to help men, but in helping men, we do help women.
Yep.
Because how many women have good options right now in dating? I mean, any women watching this are going to tell you, that catch a wind of this, they'll agree, like, no, it sucks out there, and it does, because guys don't know how to show up and be attractive and be good partners. And so in the process of helping men, we are helping women. And if like I'm here, this is a good conversation, and I'm not offended by what you said at all. But like when I do a production valued video, like I have to watch how I say that. Oh, I'm here to help men, right? Oh, men's coach. Incel, MGTOW, whatever.
It's filed in a way with the rest of the crap, right?
Misogyny coach.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So it's like, because like the way, like for instance, like when I was talking about marriage, it's like here we know how Rolo says that he cannot support the way we do marriage today.
Yes.
Right. And I say, I agree to that because
Yep.
you know why? The way that we do marriage and the way we do divorce
The mainstream is failing.
was
So why would you
never
agree with that?
established the way that it was supposed to be. We're implementing it and practicing it in ways that it was never created for.
Well, not only that though, that's a Christian perspective on it, which is a very solid one and a good one. But we are in a different time, which means you can take your Christian perspective and apply it to modern times, make it work. I've helped Muslim and Christian traditionalists in getting prepared for marriage and getting married with success. I've seen it. I've watched it happen. It's just applying good principles of, male-female dynamics and sexual marketplace dynamics. If you're somebody's husband, you still got to be attractive to her, somebody's wife still needs to be attracted to her husband. They still need to handle problems together, right? Like these are all things that whether you stay out of the marriage realm or whether you go that route. But then, of course, there's things about the state that can set someone up for failure with marriage.
Yep.
Talking about that reality is important. And then setting up your legal situation so you insulate yourself from problems, understanding that legal reality is different than the relationship.
Oh yeah, because marriage in itself, it could be very beautiful. It's
right.
The way it's designed for is completely beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the way that it's not. See, I think that a lot of guys in this space don't have a problem with marriage. The problem is with divorce. So it's their problem is with the way that we do divorce today and why it's implemented and how no fault has really contributed to a lot of broken homes. Oh, yeah. And it's like the problem is not marriage. I don't think anybody has a problem with marriage in this space. They have the problem with what happens after the marriage is not successful.
Sure.
That's where the real problem is.
Right. Well, and then the way that people mentally approach marriage sets them up for failure in the begin with. And that way, to summarize, it's, saying magic words in front of a bunch of people, and then your effort gets to stop, right? Like now the magic of your religious ideas, which I'm a theist, by the way, so I'm not trying to say like it's bullcrap. The ideas, I agree with a lot of them, but the magic of that somehow is going like reduces or eliminates your burden of performance. And it doesn't, you have more of a burden of performance to maintain this vow you just said, not less of a burden of performance because, you made it to the promised land. You had the big party, you dressed up and God said, awesome. And now you're good. Like, no, dude, no, you have more of a responsibility now. You know what I mean? But that mindset doesn't even get trained in pre-marriage training in most churches, and so it's just that we need a paradigm shift for how we approach these things so that people can have whatever it is that they want. And also understanding too, that their behaviors in what they're doing is either pushing them towards what they ultimately want or pulling them away from it. And that's another thing too. Like you can't have just everything, we're a little bit spoiled. I had a guy in my community go, how is it? How do you guys do, do monogamy? I want to do monogamy. How do you do monogamy and like not sleep with other women? Like how do you guys content? And I'm like, you say no to the sex, bro. Like what? Like now there was actually more to it, but it's like this idea that I have to have all of the benefits of monogamy and all the benefits of sleeping with somebody else because I'm high value of some sort.
Or so I think I'm high value.
Right? It's not correct. It's incorrect. What I tell people when they do relationship structures is it is everything. There is no perfect solution. Everything is a trade-off. You do full monogamy, tons of benefits from that, but you're trading something off for that too. And with that trade-off, it's going to create, problems to solve. Now you can do a soft harem where let's say you and your LTR partner maybe play with other girls or whatever, Okay, cool. But then there's a trade-off there too. And there's problems that will need to be managed. The only, and you could go down the line in every potential structure, full harems where dudes have multiple wives, open polyamory is a trade-off. I argue though that open polyamory is not the trade-off that a man should take for an LTR situation. It sets them up for ultimate failure based on our brain wiring. Maybe that's a topic for another show.
Well, that, I mean, yeah, I was gonna say that's another topic, because I think that pushes more closely to the bonobos, and I
Yes.
still want to get on a topic with you on that, because I remember I still have the research that you sent me,
Yeah.
so I
Yep.
definitely want to dive in that with you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's a good topic. Really
That's
fun.
that's
one.
gonna be a real good one. But
Oh, yeah.
okay, we're gonna wrap it up. It's been an hour and 15 minutes, Paul. I
Cool.
really appreciate you. I
Yeah, man.
always said, like, when I tell people about what I went through, I always point out to you that, look, hit up Paul from Apex Mindset. He'll get your mind right. He'll get you squared away and get you moving on. You know, like, so I really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Truly. I look at you as the older brother. I think, I'm older than you, maybe by a year. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I think you are. I'm 44. So.
You're my shorter, bigger brother.
Yeah,
Okay?
something like that.
Shorter, bigger brother.
Yeah. You're pretty jacked. I have maybe something's wider somewhere. I don't know. Man. You're throwing up a lot of weight right now, though. So I need to get on your program.
Oh man. But no, I really appreciate you. You know, everybody that's listening, check out, if you're not following Paul from Apex Mindset on YouTube or Instagram,
You need to. You
Or
need to.
Facebook.
And I have to say,
Get on it.
just through this, oh my God, Paul, I knew about you. I watched some of your stuff. I resonate with you so much. And I
Thanks, man. I
encourage
appreciate
every guy out there who needs to just level up in life. This is your guy.
Thanks, brother.
And
I
I mean
appreciate
that
that. It means a
honestly.
lot to me, dude. Yeah, thank you. It's awesome.
So yeah, guys. So until next time, peace out. Follow Paul and go lift some weights.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for watching this episode of Your Big Brothers Podcast. And again, another special thank you to Paul Benjamin for coming through and hanging